Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, join us as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, certain things here and there. Now, normally, it is No Pants Thursdays, but, you know, I've kind of instituted a new little rule in the studio here that I'm never going to have more than one person in here at once. So I kind of have 1.5 people in the studio right now. Of course, joining me here on this Thursday is Erin Cummings. Erin, how you doing?
Hi, I'm good. I've got my gloves on. I just alcohol sanitized everything. I have... Oh, my homemade mask.
It's very stylish.
Well, you know what? I decided that I wanted to try to help out the situation that's going on in our medical community right now with all of our first responders and our medical doctors, nurses, people that work in hospitals, etc. And so I also wanted to fulfill my creative needs that were not being met. So I bought a sewing machine and I went on YouTube and I looked at the manual and I taught myself how to use it, and I figured out how to make some masks. So it has a denim outside, which has a thinner, tighter weave, and fun little
Very
inside
stylish on the interior.
For people that are working in a hospital, you want to give them something kind of cute, and for them to have a little moment of happiness. And then it has a pocket inside where they can put a micron filter, which is really the important part. And cigarettes, of course. So
what is it with this situation? You and Ann both bought sewing machines.
Right.
And also bought a sewing machine.
Well, we were just talking about it, and I was saying that when all of this is over, I'll come over and we'll make some projects. Maybe we'll make a little outfit for Joey Bishop, who, Hi, Joey. She was so excited to see you today.
Oh, she's so great. She always comes running up to me and gives me a big hello when she's here. Anyway, guys, we do have a lot of stuff to talk about. We're actually going to forego top comments today because we have like 3 off the tops to cover. So let's not waste any time and let's dive right into it. First thing we're going to talk about here off the top is this. We have several things going on with Netflix right now, actually. Several things going on with Netflix. One of the things, though, is we've all, of course, been waiting for Stranger Things Season 4. Now, obviously, they have now delayed production. They were already in the midst of shooting Stranger Things Season 4, and they have delayed the production, obviously. So we know it was going to get bumped. But what has just come out, actually, what is being reported right now, is that Stranger Things Season 4 actually wasn't even going to air until 2021. Now, this thing came out in mid to late 2019, and it wasn't even going to air until 2021. So we were talking about close to 1.5 years of a break between seasons. And I know the streaming world is a little bit different. I get that. But I don't know, to me, and listen, it's not like we haven't had other shows that we've had to wait 1.5 years, 2 years for sometimes for the next season. I just don't see any reason or excuse for that, to be quite frank with you. Like, if they, in the 1960s and 70s, with the limited technology that they had, and shooting 22 episodes or 23 or 24 episodes of a show, can make sure they get a new season out every year, I just don't see an excuse for a show that's like 10 episodes long being more than a year hiatus. So I don't know, that's just me. But the interesting thing is, for those of us who are sitting here waiting for this to come back, those of us who are waiting for this to come back, now we're going to have an even longer wait. Now, who knows when this thing's going to come out? Mid-2021, late 2021? Hell, do they push it all? Do they decide, everybody's schedule's now messed up, we're going to wait till 2022? I don't know. It's going to seem like... Aaron, listen, as somebody who's worked a lot in television yourself, like... How odd is it? Like, have you ever been in a show that had like more than like a full year break in between shows, like 1.5 years break? And how common is this becoming?
Well, sadly, most of the shows that I've been on have been canceled by the time.
After one season.
I know. And then even the shows like Spartacus that do go on for multiple seasons, I'm dead by the end of the first season. So, no, I will say that one of the things that I love about doing television versus film is that there's that instant gratification, and you can look forward to seeing it not just as a viewer, but also as a participant. You have that continuity without having to wait so long in between seasons, kind of like having to wait for several years between sequels of your favorite action franchise. I don't understand why they would do this. Obviously, now with everyone having to go on furlough, it makes sense that there would be some sort of break. But I hope that they're able to resume production and that at least at this point, keep to a 2021 release. Do you know had they even started filming? I'm sorry, did you mention that?
Yeah, they had started shooting.
Mm-hmm.
They had
Do you know how
started
far
shooting.
they got into it?
I don't know. I don't know. They've been shooting for a little while. I'm not quite sure how far they got into it.
But yeah, I just don't understand the reason for that, because if anything, it causes the viewer to sort of miss. You almost have to go back and rewatch those seasons that leading up to the season, which is one of the things that I wonder, is it a strategy that Netflix does, that they let so much time elapse so that the viewer goes, wait, what happened last and where were we last? Let me go back and rewatch the first 3 seasons. Maybe that's what they intend on doing. I just can't think of any other reason why they would why they would delay it for so long.
Can you think of any other shows that have done stuff like that? I know, like, obviously Game of Thrones.
Right, Game of Thrones definitely, because just their production goes so long. When was the last time that Lucifer was released? I feel like that's been a while, right?
It's hard for me.
Because season 5... I asked Leslie Ann Brandt, who plays Maze, who's a good friend of mine. I asked her about how this was going to affect their season 5 release, because they were, I think, 2 episodes or 1 or 2 episodes from finishing their final season. Well, not final anymore because they got picked up for another season. But she said that their intention was always to release season 5 in 2 parts. So they're actually going to release the first 8 episodes, which I'm in one of those episodes. They're going to release the first 8 episodes as they planned in March, and then the following 8 episodes they'll be releasing later. But I think it's been a while since the last season of Lucifer came out, hasn't it?
I cannot remember. I can't remember because it feels like forever ago that I saw it, but I'm not really sure.
Well, also, sorry, go
ahead.
What just released that we've been watching on Sunday nights on HBO? Westworld. Westworld. I feel like the last season of Westworld was so long ago that there was even certain characters that are coming back, and I don't even remember them. I feel like I need to go back and watch season 2 of Westworld because I'm kind of lost on some of the things that are going on.
Yeah, I don't care much about Westworld.
You know what?
But I gotta say, the trailer for season 3 does look awesome.
Here's the thing: I was the biggest fan of season 1, and I even held on with season 2 when a lot of people were poo-pooing it. Season 3, I'm just not loving it so far. I'm hoping that it'll pull me, but I just haven't gotten that hook yet.
What are they, 2 episodes in now?
2 episodes,
2 episodes in? Oh, well, the trailer got me. I'm going to have to check it out. So anyway, guys, question is for you. You hear Stranger Things season 4 wasn't even supposed to come out until 2021. How long do you think it's going to be till you have to see your 4th season of it now? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. All right, next thing off the top is this. We're going to stick on the topic of Netflix here for a while. And there was a great disturbance in the force, as if millions of voices cried out in terror and they were suddenly silenced. In these days of quarantine, everybody staying at home and really relying on Hulu and Amazon Prime, and especially Netflix, well, apparently everybody had a panic attack because Netflix went down. Netflix went down in certain parts, very big parts like Texas, Southern California, a few other places, and parts of Europe as well. Users started to report that the service was down and not responding, saying there was connection issues and all that kind of stuff. Netflix immediately jumped on social media to let their viewers know that they know what the problem was and they're working on the problem. And then about an hour to an hour and a half later, it came back online. Now, as of this moment, there has been no official word given as to what caused the problem. The speculation right now about that certain websites and tech websites are speculating on right now is kind of the obvious thing, which is pure bandwidth. Pure bandwidth. Right now, with so many people at home, more people right now are using streaming services than ever before. Hulu is recording record numbers. Amazon Prime and their shows are recording record numbers. Netflix is having growth. Disney Plus saw like tripling in their traffic with their library and things like this. And so the speculation right now is that it was a bandwidth issue. Now, the one thing that goes against that argument is if it was a bandwidth issue, why didn't the service just go down, period, and only in certain states and in certain other places around the world? So that's going to be up for debate a little bit. But I do know this. If things continue as they are and everybody's at home even longer, I don't know, we could be seeing more, because we just talked the other day, Aaron, about how in Europe, Netflix just agreed, the European government approached Netflix, asked them to reduce their bit rates and reduce their bandwidth. And Amazon responded by cutting their bit rate by 25%.
Wow.
Now, honestly, from what I'm hearing from a lot of people who are viewers of ours, they're saying they really don't see much of a difference at all, because I mean, they're so good with their compression these days that a 25% bandwidth cut isn't much, but some people are noticing it a little bit. I got to imagine, especially with outages starting to happen, I got to imagine it's only going to be a matter of time before it happens here in the US. Right now, like you and Tom are as quarantined as anybody. How much are you guys relying on streaming networks right now, or how much are your board games filling your time right now?
I did one puzzle, and and now that I'm at home making masks all day, and Tom is my I don't know what the term is for the sous chef version of sewing. He does a lot of ironing and pinning for me and helping me out, and making the masks with me. We are watching the first 3 seasons, or the only 3 seasons of Westworld, which... Sorry, not Westworld, Deadwood. Deadwood, yes.
That's a great one to get caught up on.
Yes, and I'd never seen it. Tom is rewatching it, and it's so good. So our entire day is just streaming from morning until night, and I don't think that that's different from what most people are doing. I mean, except for Robert Meyer Burnett, who is probably one of the few people that's at home actually inserting Blu-ray discs into his machine.
Oh, and joyously.
He's
doing it joyously.
Absolutely. Getting his money's worth on his physical media collection. You know, most people are relying on that, but it's great to hear that with, you know, like you said, the compression technology getting so good, thanks to our friends at Pied Piper. Just for those of you who get that reference.
Little Silicon Valley reference.
You know, it's really good to hear, and I think that this is an interesting evolution in the progress of streaming media. We're going to continue to see these bit rates falling as compression rates are getting better, as the technology is improving, and as more people are relying on streaming media. I think, you know, that's just going to continue to improve, and these things happen.
So the question here is, guys, were you one of those who cried out in terror in the night as you saw Netflix going down? Do you think this might happen more often? Do you think now it's probably just another different technical glitch not associated with bandwidth, which is totally possible? What do you think about that? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, one last thing off the top here that I wasn't even going to bring up, but I had a few people writing to me and getting this issue kind of confused. So here's what happens. Staying on the theme of Netflix and Stranger Things, David Harbour, who is, of course, in Stranger Things, and he's in the upcoming Marvel film Black Widow. And I got to say, he looks really good in it. I can't wait to see him in this thing. So I started getting a bunch of people writing to me, because there's been a lot of debate about, should the studios take these big major films and just put them directly to VOD or stuff like that? That's been something going around. I had a bunch of people writing to me and saying, John, did you see David Harbour wants Black Widow on Disney+? Did you see that? I'm like, that's rather stupid, but okay, let's go see what David Harbour said. To be clear, David Harbour did say he would like to see, and he wouldn't mind seeing Disney+ have Black Widow, but when you actually read the story and not the headline, and this is why I wanted to point this out, just because I had a lot of people just reading the headlines. When you read what he actually said, you put it into context. This is what he said. This is from our friends over at Cinema Blend. This is David Harbour speaking. I'm very much looking forward to being in Black Widow if we are ever able to release that movie. I would love to be able to watch that movie too. You know, I have not seen that movie. I have seen some stuff in ADR, and it looks really good. And also, I was there when we were shooting it, and I'm really excited about it. But I would like to see it myself. Hell, I would watch it on Disney+. So, look, yes, he did sort of say, if you want to be literal about it, he did actually say he would like to see it on Disney+. But when you put it into context, he was not saying, I think we should forego the theatrical exhibition and put this thing to... No, he was just being a bit facetious and all that kind of stuff. And Aaron, I know you've talked to me about, I mean, just recently there was a movie you were involved in where you had to go and spend time doing ADR. But is this a common thing where you shoot either a movie or a TV show and you actually don't even get to see it yourself except for those little ADR things until later?
Never.
Really?
In fact,
Never?
Never. No, I mean, yes. Sometimes for a film, they'll have a cast and crew screening. Like I did a movie in 2018, I believe, and it was supposed to be going to some film festivals this year, which have all obviously been canceled. And we recently had a cast and crew screening. They flew down to LA, where a lot of the actors are based, and we had a LA-based cast and crew screening. But I was there. Yes, you were.
I was there.
Of course you were. But that's quite rare. In fact, especially for television, of course, you're never going to see it beforehand. Whenever I go to do ADR, I always ask them, "Oh, can you play the whole scene for me?" Because sometimes they'll just want to play the little snippet where your dialogue that you have to record is. So yeah, you rarely get to see the film and it's or the television show before it actually comes out for everyone. So I can understand him saying that he wants to see it. Of course, his comment, though, of course, is wildly taken out of context if people are saying that he wants it that way. For him to say, hell, I would even watch it on Disney Plus. That's like if Tom says, do you want sushi or Italian? And I go, I'm so hungry, hell, I'll eat Joey's dog food. That doesn't mean that I want to eat dog food. It just means that I really want to eat something. So I'll just throw anything out. I think David Harbour is just trying to explain his enthusiasm for seeing the film, and that as a worst case scenario, he'd even watch it on Disney Plus. But obviously, any film that is made to be seen on the big screen should be watched on the big screen, and that's where he wants to see it.
All right, guys. Question is, were you taken aback too when you saw those headlines? Maybe you thought it meant one thing when it meant another. What do you think about all that? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down and out of the way, we're now going to move on to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission as one of the featured topics here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's go on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Asif M, who writes, we all know that in the movie world, the people really getting hit hard at the local theater are the local theater employees who have no jobs and bills are piling up. Looks like AMC is sharing the pain around. I read an article, where'd I go? I read an article that said AMC is laying off all their corporate employees, including the CEO, to keep costs down while the situation continues. Do you consider this a really serious sign of how much trouble they're in, or do you think it's a goodwill gesture showing that even the bosses are taking the hit too? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, look, obviously, bigger problems around the world. The situation going on in the world is impacting, causing inconvenience and suffering for other people on an unimaginable scale. However, here on this show, we talk about things and issues within the realm of the movie world. So that is what we talk. And, one of the biggest hit entities in all this are the movie theaters. They're having to be shut down, all this kind of stuff. There are tens of thousands of movie theater employees around the world that right now are just sitting at home. They don't have their jobs, all that kind of stuff, and it's getting tough. And we talked a little while ago, too, that there are even some financial analysts in Hollywood saying, we wonder if even AMC can come back from this, because counter to popular opinion, I should say, the movie theater industry is a razor-thin margin industry. Everybody thinks they're just rolling in cash. They're not. It's a razor-thin industry. In the midst of all that, not only is AMC's theater staff laid off, all their corporate staff, so I guess if I was still working for them, I'd be laid off too. All their corporate staff have now been put on furlough. Here's what was written in Variety. AMC Theaters furloughed more than 600 corporate employees after the coronavirus outbreak forced the movie theaters across the country to close. The action extends to every corporate AMC staff member, including Chief Executive Officer Adam Aron. Employees will have reduced working hours at reduced pay or no working hours for no pay. All furloughed corporate employees will retain their active employment status, including health benefits. AMC said the chain was forced to implement a furlough plan to preserve cash and ensure its circuits can reopen when the world has recovered from the coronavirus crisis. This, of course, comes from Variety. So in the question, and it's a good question, is this a move by AMC as a goodwill gesture to all their employees saying the pain is being shared around, or is this a matter of necessity because things really are that tough right now? The answer is yes to both. I think it's a little bit of an answer to yes to both. When you have the CEO himself taking, either no pay right now or reduced pay, and you're taking all the executives and all the corporate staff and that kind of, it's a little bit of a gesture of goodwill. And it's nice. It's nice. But it's also a matter of survival. It's also a matter of survival because when things do open back up, and even though it doesn't feel like they will, they will. When things open back up, it's going to take some capital to get everything up and running again. You got to bring back all your theater staff. You got to have cash on hand ready to operate. And the only way they're going to conserve that cash is if they cut corners everywhere they can right now. I think it is a bit of a sign of the times and what's going on, but I also think it's a little bit of a sign of them doing a little bit of a good gesture, Will. Aaron, when it starts actually hitting the corporate offices, that's when you know shit's getting real. when you even see the corporations laying their own people off within their corporate towers and all that kind of stuff. So you see this. Is your first impression that of, wow, this is really a sign of how serious it is, or wow, this is a gesture to their other employees? How do you look at it?
Well, I think that this is probably a symbolic furlough because let's be real. In order for the company to not completely dissolve and for the company to be able to come back whenever it is safe for people to go outside again and for people to go back to work, we're going to need that CEO and we're going to need that top executive staff to be able to have been working and to be doing things behind the scenes in order to keep the train moving. So I can imagine maybe the conversation is, hey, we're going to technically furlough ourselves, but I can't imagine that they're just sitting at home doing nothing like everybody else. I imagine that they're probably still working and that it's a more symbolic, hey, we're, like the writer said, we're sharing your pain. I do, however, have a little bit of I take pause when the idea of the theater employees being the ones in the movie industry who are being hit hardest, because correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're working at the movie theater and you're taking tickets or you're selling popcorn and sodas, that's more than likely a minimum wage job, right?
Yeah, but it's all the wage they've got. It's everything
Hold on. I'm not. No. I'm not saying I've worked a lot of minimum wage jobs in my life. My first job was as the drive-through person at McDonald's. So I have no shame about minimum wage jobs. What I'm saying is there are still minimum wage jobs available. Every grocery store that I have been to throughout this entire crisis has signs up saying, we need help. You can deliver for Postmates and Grubhub and Seamless and all those drivers. There are minimum wage jobs that are available. So if you're doing and that's a lateral transition from a minimum wage job working at a movie theater, taking tickets or selling tickets, to working at a grocery store, restocking things, which there is a desperate need for. Then in the movie industry, you have people say gaffers and electricians and people who work in the crew of television shows and movies who in an instant, their shows that they were working on, their movies that they were working on, they don't have those anymore. And that's a very different, that's a trade. That's an actual career. And so I'm not saying that people in a movie that are in a movie crew position would not go and work at a grocery store, but that's not a lateral financial move. So your lifestyle, whatever it is that you have, that you have built your life to be based on your rent and your expenses, if you're making a lateral move from one minimum wage job to another during this time of uncertainty, that is not as big of a transition as, say, people who are working in the movie industry who have careers based on the skill that they've been doing, they've been developing for 20 years. So yes, I have a great deal of sympathy for anyone who is laid off. I mean, as you and I have talked about privately, I booked 2 jobs that immediately were canceled that I was expecting, money for. We're all in this position of uncertainty. And to the people who are working at the movie theaters, I say, do like the 3.3 million Americans have done over the last week and file for unemployment. I do have a question, though, about when it says that the furloughed employees retain their employment status.
Yeah, which is the difference between being furloughed and, say, released. Yeah.
Right. And see, that's the thing is, are they saying that these employees are not being released and therefore cannot apply for unemployment?
Probably, yes.
But see, I don't know. But see, in that case, I don't understand. That's not, if they're not paying the employees, then how is that helpful?
Well, now we're getting into economics, and I'm not quite sure how that works. But I would say this, back to your other thing about theater employees and gaffers and electricians. I would say the theater employees are in a much worse state, because if you're not an imbecile, and you have a career and you're earning career money and you're not foolish, you're putting money away. If you have career money, you're putting a little bit of money away every single week, blah, blah. When you're a lot of these kids and these folks who work in like the movie theaters and stuff like that, you don't have that kind of margin. You don't have the ability, because when you're working for whatever the minimum wage is in a lot of cities and towns, you don't have the extra income to set a little bit aside just in case something goes south. And when all of a sudden what little you have is now taken away from you, like I can just imagine a friend of mine who's got a career, who's making an X amount of money. If he loses his job tomorrow, he should have a month's worth of living expenses set aside. He should have 2 months worth of living expenses set aside. A lot of these kids and these folks who works in these movie theaters, they don't have that, And so the crunch is real. So anybody can then go, I don't feel bad for people who have to experience a transition in lifestyle. I just don't feel bad for that. If you've got a career, that sucks if your career gets put on hold. But like everybody else, you can go and get those emergency, desperately needed positions that people need right now, whether it's delivery services or groceries or things like that, things we need right now, as can the employees in the theater. But the difference is, if you've got a career, you should have a little bit of money set aside to hold you over, at least for a while. And these kids in these theaters don't have that. And so it is hitting them significantly harder, I believe. It's hitting them harder. So that's just a thought. But I mean, it sucks for everybody.
Well, but the difference, though, is when you're talking about a career, I understand if someone has, say, an office job, an office career where they collect a paycheck every 2 weeks. When you work in the world of film and television, as you know, you go from job to job to job, and there are long periods of time.
Yeah, it's feast or famine. It's feast or famine. Yeah.
And you go for long periods of time where you don't have a job, where you go on hiatus. And so a lot of times the people who work in these crews, I mean, I have friends who are performers. I have a lot of friends who are performing in Rock of Ages that just came to Los Angeles. The show just opened in Los Angeles less than 2 months before they ended up having to close. All of those performers are now out of a job. And yeah, that's a career. That's something that they went to college, they trained, they auditioned, they moved out here from New York to do this show. And then all of a sudden they're out of a job, they're out of a career. They don't have money put aside.
But it'll be back. It'll be back.
And so will the theaters.
Yeah, but those people can do exactly what the theater workers can do. They can go and take those other jobs to hold themselves over in the meantime.
You're right. What they can do. But we're talking about a difference in a lateral move financially. Like based on how much you anticipate that you're going to make, that's how much rent that's the kind of apartment that you're looking for. And the razor thin margin of someone who is working minimum when I was working minimum wage.
We've got to move on from this topic because we've been on it for far too long. But we're going to put it over to you guys, though. What do you think about this move from AMC Theaters? Do you think this is more of a sign of the times, that just the fact that it's that hard even for the corporations themselves? Do you think it's more of a gesture of goodwill, however full or light it might actually be? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay. Next topic today gets sent into us, and this is going to be interesting. The next topic today gets sent into us by Darren Friesen, who writes, "Greetings, John. So with China opening up their theaters again, and with Avatar and the Avengers movies again. So the Chinese theaters are open again with Avatar and the Avengers movies, as well as a number of others, by the way. And with Endgame only being $10 million ahead of Avatar for the biggest box office of all time, and people haven't seen Avatar on the big screen in like a decade, Forbes is saying Avatar could take back the all-time record from Endgame. Do you think that will happen? All right, thanks a lot for the question, man. And yet, there's a lot of interesting sub-stories in this. Number one, China is reopening their theaters again. I think they said 600 or 700 locations are going to be reopening their theaters. So that's one thing. On top of all that, you've got, there's not a lot of new movies to open because a lot of movies have been bumped, so they're going to try to get people back in the theaters by releasing some of the favorites. They're going to be releasing the 4 Avengers films, or is it 5? No, 4 Avengers films at this point. They're going to release a number of Chinese big blockbusters, and they're going to be re-releasing Avatar, which for the longest time was the all-time box office record holder, including in China for a time as well. So what we're getting out of Forbes is a really interesting story on this. Forbes is pointing out that with Avengers and Avatar both opening up, there could be a possibility. Look, we all knew at some point Avatar was going to pass Endgame again. That's just what's going to happen. Avatar will pass Endgame at some point because we all know that Disney is going to re-release Avatar at some point nationwide as a part of promoting and building up the excitement for Avatar 2. We've all known that. We've all talked about that forever. It's something we've all been expecting. And at that point, it would cross Endgame. Then at some point, the 5th anniversary of Endgame special release will happen, and Endgame will retake the lead, and they're probably going to play this virtual game of hopscotch throughout the ages. Anyway, so they point this out that with China re-releasing and opening up their theaters with these films again, it could happen sooner rather than later. In one interesting paragraph in the Forbes article, they put this: I always expected an eventual reissue of Avatar in order to promote next year's, fingers crossed, Avatar 2. We've all been expecting that, to put it back on top, take back the number 1 position at the box office. But A, I didn't expect it this soon, and B, I certainly didn't expect a concurrent reissue of its box office rival. Avatar is just $10.361 million behind Avengers Endgame. On one hand, you've got the biggest Chinese export of all time by a lot. Fate of the Furious 7 earned $391 million in 2015 and 2017 respectively, coming back to theaters at the end of a months-long blackout period. On the other hand, you have a movie that shattered box office records a generation ago with a reissue giving an entirely new demographic, especially if this expands to major chains, the chance to see it again on the big screen. This to me is a fascinating question because there are some things to go back and forth on this. Number one, Avatar and Endgame are both hitting the Chinese theaters like 600 screens at the same time. Endgame is outrageously popular, and outrageously popular specifically in China, right? Outrageously popular in China. So there's all that. On the other hand, everybody just saw Endgame on the big screen. It really wasn't long ago. It was just a breath ago that we all saw Avatar on the big screen. And it's on all types of streaming services right now. Everybody has probably seen Endgame right now, probably about a dozen times in one way, shape, or form. Compounding that, Avatar is a movie that a lot of people in our small little online, movie circles, a lot of people look at it and think, nobody cares about that. But we're wrong. We're wrong. A huge chunk of the average movie-going audience does care about Avatar, despite the fact that I really don't care about it that much. I'm sure a lot of you guys are watching maybe don't care about it that much, but a lot of people do. And the fact that it hasn't been on the big screen in ages and ages and ages. And as they point out in Forbes, it has been, in movie terms, like an entire generation has never seen Avatar on the big screen. I've always believed that at some point, Aaron, Disney was going to take Avatar, re-release it to promote Avatar 2. That's a no-brainer. They're going to do that, and it will pass Endgame. It could very well do it now, because if it only has, some say it's about 40 or 50 million behind, some say it's about 5 million behind, Forbes is saying it's about 10.36 million behind, whatever. If all Avatar has to do is outperform Endgame, a movie that everybody just saw on the big screen and probably has at home right now, by about $10 million, honestly, I think it's like 50-50. I think there is a legit, maybe 40% chance, but a legitimate chance that we could see Avatar take back the all-time box office title right now, and then extend that lead when they re-release for Avatar 2, and then somewhere down the line, Endgame has its anniversary. But I don't know. With all those dynamics in play, do you think that Avatar in this Chinese re-release could hopscotch Endgame? Or do you think Endgame might actually extend its lead over Avatar with its incredible popularity? How do you think it's going to work out?
I do think that Avatar has a great opportunity to take the lead position on this because, as was pointed out, you have a generation of people who fell in love with the film when it was initially released.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who haven't seen the movie. So you're going to have people going and seeing it again to have the nostalgia of the first time they saw it, bringing with them younger people who haven't seen it, who will be able to experience it for the first time. And I love this competition, the friendly competition that these two projects have with one another, where the directors are encouraging one another and saying, hey, I hope that you do overtake me, because then I'll just come back and, hopscotch over you and whenever we do our re-release. These are sort of those $1 million problems, that we can have in the film
or
industry.
Billion dollar
problems, exactly. And I think that this is a wonderful boost of, coming off of this terrible economic situation that we've been in. This is a great conversation to have, and I'm so happy that that China is in a position to be able to bring people back to the movie theaters, and I think it's going to give a lot of people hope for what's going to be coming down the road.
What do you think? This is interesting to me, because what do you think about this? A lot of people are asking, Quiet Place 2 was bumped. It was supposed to come out last week. And a lot of people ask, do you think when the movie theaters open, Quiet Place will be front in line? And I said, probably not, because Quiet Place is going to want to ramp up a marketing campaign.
Right, exactly.
What do you think about the strategy of them taking some big, beloved, older films and relaunching the theaters with those? Do you think they should be rolling out with smaller new films, or do you like the idea of going with the big, loved films?
We need to get people back in the theaters and to make sure that people know that it's safe, that theaters are open for business, that they can go and sit in a theater and feel comfortable and not be worried about getting sick or anything being dangerous about going to the theater. And what better way to do that than to bring back a beloved film that people are going to want to see on the big screen as it was intended. Starting with a slow rollout of films that maybe have a little bit of interest, maybe people are sort of on the fence about. If it's a film that someone is looking at going, I'll just watch it when it's streaming, then that's not going to get people excited and interested in going back to the theaters. And once we have people going back to the movies and saying, oh yeah, I went to the movies, I didn't get sick, everything's fine, business is booming, then it'll just encourage that behavior to continue on.
Well, guys, I think this is, like I said, I think this is a fascinating topic, because there's so many things, putting old things in. Avatar versus Endgame. One was just in theaters. One, maybe a whole ton of people haven't seen it on the big screen yet. If I had to put $50 down on it, if I had to put $50 down, and I was forced, I wouldn't want to put any money on this, but if I was forced to put $50 down, I think right now I would probably put the 50 on Endgame keeping the lead, but I wouldn't feel comfortable, because I honestly think there's more of a chance that Avatar may overtake it right now than a lot of people are thinking. Again, if I had to put $50 on it, I put it on Endgame still being in the lead at this point, but when this is done. But I'm telling you, I think there is a more legitimate chance than people are considering. So it's going to be interesting to see. Question is, guys, I wanted to make that the question of the day for you guys, and I wanted to ask you. And the question of the day I simply put to you guys was simply this. With both Avatar and Endgame returning to theaters in China and being so close, do you think Avatar will retake the all-time box office lead? And right now, only 27, which honestly, that's a bigger number than I thought. Honestly, I thought only like 5% of you guys would think this, but 27.3% of you are saying, yes, Avatar will overtake Endgame right now in the Chinese re-release. 72.7% of you guys are saying no, it won't. I put up this poll just before the show started. A little over 1,600 of you guys have replied. I'll leave that poll up there. You can find it on my Twitter, simply at John Campea. I'll leave that poll up there for you guys to debate a little bit more. But again, I get if I had to put 50 on it, Yes, I think Endgame keeps it, but I'm just telling you, don't be surprised. Don't be surprised if Avatar jumps up and takes it. Okay, guys, with that stuff down and out of the way, a lot of us are kind of stuck at home right now with everything going on in the world, but making lemonade out of lemons, this is a great time, as many of you guys are taking advantage of this, to get caught up on some hidden gem movies or some older classics that you haven't had a chance to get caught up on yet. I know a lot of people are writing me saying they're watching The Godfather for the first time, they're watching Lawrence of Arabia for the first time. All awesome stuff. So in this part of the show, what me and my guests like to do is give you a recommendation of a movie that maybe you haven't seen yet. Like, not big mega popular movies, but maybe just a movie you haven't had a chance to see yet. And so, Aaron, we're going to give the honors to you. You're going to kick us off here. What is your kind of all of us stuck in quarantine movie recommendation for us this week?
My recommendation is The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
I have not seen or heard people talk about that movie in ages.
You know, when you asked me about this, I was trying to think, and, you know, as I've stated earlier, I've been watching Deadwood. And so I'm in season 2, where there's a lot going on with the brothels. For those of you who have seen the show, I won't spoil anything. And so I guess I had sort of Western brothels on my mind because of Deadwood. And the first movie that came to my mind was Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. For those of you who haven't seen it or are not familiar with the background of it, it is actually originally based on a in the 1970s there was a brothel that was in LaGrange, Texas, and Marvin Zindler, who was a reporter for Houston, which those of you who grew up near Houston, and I did, you will remember Marvin Zindler, Eyewitness News. Marvin Zindler was this expose reporter, and he went and did this big expose and got this brothel in LaGrange, Texas shut down. Well, then Playboy did an article about it, and from that article that was in Playboy, I believe it was in 1973, a Broadway producer came in and said, this could be a really fun Broadway show. So they made The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas into a Broadway show. It was nominated for several Tonys. From there, it became the feature film starring Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise. Charles Durning actually was nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Was he nominated for that?
He was nominated for an Oscar. Dolly Parton was nominated for the Golden Globe for her performance. The film was nominated for a Golden Globe in comedy or musical category. And, you know, it is one of those films right now, everybody's really stressed out. I don't know anybody who isn't feeling a certain degree of anxiety right now. And we all need a little bit of a relief. A little release in the comedy space. And this movie, you know, I started rewatching it last night just because I knew we were going to talk about it and I wanted it to be fresh. And God, from the very beginning, it's just so silly and fun. It came out in 1982. It has a lot of, if you're a fan of musicals, which you have to be a fan of musicals to enjoy this because that's what it is, but it has a Grease quality to it. You know, there's the kind of that sort of Grease had that nice layer of absurdity, like in Grease 2 when they're all doing triple pirouettes with bowling balls. I mean, just absolutely absurd song and dance numbers, but really fun and nostalgic. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas has a little bit of that quality to it. And Dom DeLuise is so funny when Burt Reynolds comes into his dressing room and he's putting on his corset and his shoulder pads and he's talking about how masculine he is, you know. And then you have Jim Nabors, who everybody loved as Gomer Pyle from the Andy Griffith Show. He plays this sort of, you know, do-do-do deputy. This is Burt Reynolds when he was at the height of his career. He is so handsome. He and Dolly Parton, who I am such a Dolly Parton fan. I have been to Dollywood. I love everything about.
Okay.
Oh yes, I've been to Dollywood. Yes, absolutely. I have her records for my record player. I love all things Dolly Parton. Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds have such incredible chemistry in this movie. You want to see chemistry that doesn't smolder, but actually makes you feel really good. Their chemistry in this movie is fantastic. And you know, for if you're interested in seeing a little girl skin, there's quite a lot of girl skin. And if you want to see some guy skin, there's quite a lot of guy skin too. The Texas Aggie song and dance number is the most absurd thing that I think I've ever seen in a comedy. But it's really fun. So if you're looking for just a complete escape and to laugh, I highly recommend Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And if anybody out there wants to bring that back as a stage production, I think this would be a really fun time to see that.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Hasn't it been brought back as a stage production at some point?
I'm sure it has. Yeah, I mean, it obviously it was nominated for 2 Tonys. It did very well. Right. And also, at the box office, it was the highest grossing. You know what? I read something last night, but I didn't verify that, so I'm not going to say it. But it actually was top of the box office and was only overtaken by Beverly Hills Cop.
All right, so we've got one recommendation for Best Little. I hadn't thought of that movie in years.
Well, I'm glad to refresh your memory on it.
I think I was 9 when it came out. So
I remember when they played it on television. They obviously
that's gonna be heavily edited.
Oh, very, very heavily edited. They did a film, a version specifically for TV. And I remember watching it at home with my parents. And I was so young, I didn't know what a whorehouse was. But all I knew is that if you lived in one, you got to wear fancy clothes, you got to dance and sing, and Dolly Parton lived there. So I was running around the house telling my parents, I want to move to a whorehouse. I want to move to a whorehouse. And they were like, okay.
You'll learn.
You'll figure it out one day.
So that's our one recommendation today. Is Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Dolly Parton, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. I haven't thought of that one in ages. All right, guys, here's one I want to recommend. It's actually not all that old, actually. This one I want to recommend. And it's a film, you've probably heard me mention this before because, look, I admit I'm not the biggest Woody Allen film in the world. He's got a few that I really love. One, of course, is Annie Hall. I mean, it's just, to this day, comedies generally don't usually age very well, and some really great ones do. Annie Hall is one that just ages so well. But besides Annie Hall, a very surprising film to me that I only went to go see because it was the premiere of it, and I have all the cast is going to be there, and I wanted to see if I could see the cast, and this was pretty earlier in my career. But it's got some incredible performances, but really at the end of it, the reason that most people went to go see this movie was because they wanted to see, there was a hope that they could see Scarlett Johansson, Javier Bardem, and maybe Penelope Cruz in a threesome. That was pretty much the basis of what they wanted to go see. But the movie is fantastic. It's Vicky, Cristina, Barcelona. This is a movie that kind of came and went a little bit, but it is the movie that introduced me, by the way. So while everybody was talking about 3 of the most beautiful creatures walking the earth, Javier Bardem, Scarlett Johansson, and Penelope Cruz, which, all the trailers tease, come see a threesome with these 3. Those are the names everybody talked about. The star of this movie, though, was actually none of those 3. The star of the movie, and this was the movie that really introduced me to her, was Rebecca Hall, who is in the top picture in the middle, who we then went on to see in Iron Man 3. She was in Iron Man 3 as well. Rebecca Hall is awesome, and to me kind of is the heartbeat of this movie, and it's fascinating. So it's these 2 friends, Rebecca Hall and Scarlett Johansson, who I believe they go to Spain for a vacation, and they both meet Javier Bardem, and of course everybody falls in love with Javier Bardem, and then his ex comes into the picture, it's Penelope Cruz, that complicates things, and yes, there is a threesome scene in it and all that kind of stuff. But aside from the tantalizing aspects of that, it's just a really good relationships, and I don't just mean romantic relationships, character depth, great dialogue, very charming and funny in a lot of different places. This was just a movie that hit it out of the park to me. And I remember walking out of it because, again, I always love it when you walk into a movie where it's like, I have no expectations for this movie. I wasn't even going to see this movie. Quite frankly, I wasn't even interested in this film. The trailers did this movie no favors. but I went in, watched it, absolutely adored it, and it is to this day my second favorite amongst all the Woody Allen classics. It is my second favorite Woody Allen film, only behind the iconic Annie Hall. That's saying a lot. I love this movie. Aaron, did you ever have a chance to watch Vicky, Cristina, Barcelona?
I didn't.
A lot of people didn't. A lot of people didn't.
But you know what? We have clearly some time on our hands, so maybe that'll be one that I check out.
I highly, highly recommend, guys.
Okay.
So our 2 recommendations today, and I do recommend them both. Burt Reynolds' Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, Scarlett Johansson's Vicky, Cristina, Barcelona. Check these out. I don't think you'll be... Very different movies from each other, but I don't think you'll regret that. All right, guys, you know what? I realized I skipped over one of our main topics. I accidentally skipped over. This is what happens, guys, when you are not only trying to do the show, but you're also the technical director and try to do everything at once. We skipped over a topic. So let's go to our final main topic today, which should have been our topic earlier. But let's go on to our final main topic today. And our final main topic today, gets submitted to us by Geeky Gator, of course, who writes in, "Hey, John and crew. Patty Jenkins recently said in a Vanity Fair interview that she did not direct Thor: The Dark World," because you guys remember she was originally on to be the director of Thor: The Dark World and then later left. That she did not direct Thor: The Dark World because she didn't think she could make a good movie that she believed in with the script that they had, and that she wouldn't have gotten another chance at directing a big movie. I think, sadly, she is right, that she wouldn't have been able to direct Wonder Woman afterwards due to her gender. What do you think of her comments? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Geeky. And yes, a lot of people sometimes forget, I sometimes forget, that Patty Jenkins, who directed Charlize Theron to her Academy Award win in Monster, which she's just phenomenal, and then didn't get another big movie offered to her. Like, she got Charlize Theron her Oscar and didn't get another movie, like a significant movie offered to her until Thor 2, and then she walked away. To which I'm sure everybody was like, and they never really said why except for creative differences. That's the only comment that's ever come out. Just creative differences, parted ways. That can mean a million different things. But you're thinking, like, who in their right mind would walk away from directing, especially in this era, of a comic book film? And of course, the movie that we were talking about was Thor: The Dark World, Thor 2. Well, now she's loosened up a little bit and has decided to go into some more specifics about why specifically she decided to not direct Thor 2. And this is what she said. "I did not believe that I could make a good movie out of the script that they were planning on doing." That's polite talk for the script sucked. That's polite talk for the script sucked. "I did not believe that I could make a good movie out of the script that they were planning on doing. I think it would have been a huge deal. It would have looked like it was my fault. It would have looked like, oh my God, this woman directed it and she missed all these things. That was the one time in my career where I really felt like, do this with, say, another director and it's not going to be a big deal. And maybe they'll understand it and love it more than I do. Like maybe another director will come along who sees something more in the script than I do. Maybe they can make something out of it. You can't do movies you don't believe in. The only reason to do it would be to prove to people that I could. But it wouldn't have proved anything if I didn't succeed. I don't think that I would have gotten another chance." There are some big, huge boulders of stuff in this that I think we need to touch on. The first thing I think we need to touch on is simply this. The script was terrible. And you know what? I'm one of the guys that I think there are redeeming things about Thor: The Dark World. I don't hate Thor: The Dark World. But it was such a monumental step down from the brilliant Kenneth Branagh first Thor, because I think the first Thor is the second most underappreciated, underrated comic book film ever made, only behind Man of Steel. But that was such a massive step down, and infamously, even Kevin Feige was realizing that the script was weak, because I remember at the time, back when I was still at AMC, what they were doing is they were literally flying in Joss Whedon as the movie was shooting to get him to fly to set and overnight rewrite pages. That's how weak the script was. The script was that bad, and as they started shooting it, they realized it really was that weak, that they were desperately trying to get, and Whedon improved the film. He did. His dialogue, you can clearly tell where his dialogue got in there and saved a bunch of the movie. But, I mean, it was what it was. And so even though she hadn't been offered a big film since Monster, even though getting a foot in the door for a major studio film like Thor 2 coming off of the first Thor, you'd think you'd be crazy to turn that down. Patty Jenkins, who never ceases to impress me, looked at the situation and said, it's not worth it. Because what's going to happen is, since I don't have 5 films over the last 7 years, they're just going to see this and say, oh, this is the director's fault. And hey, listen, a lot of the responsibility for a film does fall on the director. But she realized, I can't make a good movie out of this script. And she made the unimaginable decision to step away from it. And now in hindsight, thank God she did, because then she got on a movie that she did believe in the script in Wonder Woman and crushed it on Wonder Woman. And I'll tell you what else, Erin. I don't think she's wrong. When she says, if I had stepped in there, I hadn't done a movie since Monster, and I had done this big blockbuster movie that's in front of all the world to see, like if she had made another little indie film that nobody saw and it didn't work out so well, I don't think that would have hurt her career. You've got to step onto the big stage and you don't deliver and everybody looks at you. She definitely wouldn't have got Wonder Woman. I don't know when she would have gotten another director's gig. She made a very, very tough choice, stepped away from it, and it all worked out for the best. And now she can look back and kind of smile. And I think this was one of the most savvy, astute, intelligent, gutsy move. Because if you're a director and you just did something great and you don't get any offers forever and then you get this big offer, that took such guts to walk away from that. It's crazy. And I'm telling you what, my love, everybody knows how much I love Patty Jenkins. My love and respect for Patty Jenkins just continues to grow and grow and grow when you look at that. Anyway, Erin, as somebody in the movie business, you've got to be able to relate with the notion of having an opportunity, but then is it an opportunity I should take? I don't know. How do you look at Patty Jenkins, how she handled this whole situation?
I mean, all the words that you use to describe her are absolutely on point, and gutsy absolutely rings true here, because I'm also thinking about the other women that she may have talked to. I mean, this must have been a decision that took a very long time for her to make, and she probably sought out the opinions of a lot of people that she trusted and respected. And there probably were people that were saying, women never get this kind of opportunity. You're crazy if you pass it up. And, there was Amy.
Which is a legitimate thought. It's a legitimate
Amy
thought.
Pascal, who was the, one of the heads of Sony and who famously was outed when the Sony hack happened.
With the emails, yeah.
And she was very famously hacked for saying in American Hustle, let's give, literally is like, she was quoted as saying, let's give all the guys this many points and let's give the girls that many points. And it was drastically lower. I mean, she had multiple misogynistic comments herself that she was outed for. And Amy Pascal has said, oh, I've tried to get Patty Jenkins to direct something forever, but she won't do it, when she was asked why she doesn't hire more women directors. Well, it's like there's more women than just Patty Jenkins. So like even that is an example of a female studio head who only sees one woman director as an option. So I'm sure that she probably had a lot of people in her ear saying, women are not getting these opportunities and you haven't worked at doing anything else. It's interesting that you mentioned, had she done another small movie that was sort of like under the radar, that's also a trap that a lot of women directors get caught in, which is, oh, she's found her niche. She doesn't want to do bigger movies. She likes to do, I was reading an article about this morning that was just talking about the idea of when a man does an independent film, that's his way of saying, hey, I'm ready to step up, I'm ready to level up. Whereas when a woman does a smaller independent film and maybe does 2 of them, then she's told, oh, you found her niche. Kathleen Kennedy, who obviously we talk about a lot on this show, has said famously, oh, we'd love to hire a woman, but, we can't give a woman a big budget movie like Star Wars when she hasn't really done something that earns that, she hasn't done anything of that caliber yet. Whereas her husband, Frank Marshall, very famously hired Colin Trevorrow to do Jurassic World when his only one previous film was a $500,000 independent film. So clearly, if you are someone who's done a $500,000 indie, you can step up and do a $150 million movie like Jurassic World. So the idea that, you have to have done X number of films before you can do a big budget feature, that rule only seems to apply for women.
Well, it's interesting because I've told this story before, but it applies here. I had Kevin Feige in my studio at one point, and we were talking about the Guardians of the Galaxy. And at that point, James Gunn had only done, smaller. He was in Trauma. He had done, things like, one of my absolute favorites, Slither, and he did a few other smaller projects. And I remember asking Kevin Feige, and I said, did you have any apprehension about James? Like, why James? Like, he's never. Did you have any apprehension of the fact that he's never worked on a big budget project? It's kind of like a lot of visual effects and blah blah. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but basically Kevin looked at me and he said, if somebody knows how to tell a story, they know how to tell a story. And
if they have a penis.
Well, no, because then he hired Patty
Yes,
Jenkins.
you're right.
That then they had creative differences over it, and she had a split. But I think that applies there. It's like Marshall had the right idea. So, but still, the notion of I really want to focus on this. Walking away from that type of a project, like I got to imagine, Aaron.
I walked away from something that was like $30,000, and it was a big deal. I mean, $30,000 is a lot of money, for anybody. Obviously, it's not a lot of money for people when you're making $20 million, but that's a lot of money.
Well,
and that practically killed me.
So I can't even. Wasn't that like excruciating for you to make that decision?
Awful. It was awful, and it ultimately proved to be the right thing for me, but it was terrible. It was, and I had such guilt and remorse about that, because then I came home to nothing. Similarly, not similarly, obviously very different scale, but Patty Jenkins, it's not like she was saying, oh, I could direct Thor or I could direct Spider-Man, and Spider-Man has a better script. It's I could direct Thor
or do nothing.
And so I can only imagine. Yes, now she can look back. We can all say, hopefully in our lives, that we've made some really tough decisions, and we look back and say, you know what, I'm glad that I stuck to my guns about that. I had a lot of people telling me that I shouldn't do Spartacus. A lot of people. There were very few reasons why I should have done it. And ultimately, I'm glad that I did, because it did big things for my career. But at the time, it was a huge risk because of a number of reasons, which I won't go into. They didn't pay me anything. It was like very low. That's the biggest reason. It was like I went into debt doing that show. But so, you have to make sometimes really hard decisions, but I'm glad that she made that decision. I'm glad that she now is at the place where she can look back and say it all worked out for the best. But like you mentioned, the fact that after Charlize Theron won the Academy Award for Monster, Patty Jenkins was not being thrown every major studio film in Hollywood is absolutely absurd to me. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, if I've made this argument before, if any male director had directed Monster, and I always say the number one job of the director is to bring the best performance they can out of their performer and work with their performer and to direct them. And actresses like Charlize Theron say they so rely on the directors and blah, blah, blah. If it had been a guy, I've made this argument for years, if it had been a guy that directed Monster, they would have had offers lined up out the door.
100%. Well, it changed the course of Charlize Theron's career, because she had previously been seen as the girlfriend, the wife, the supporting character, and this all of a sudden took her in a different trajectory of being a leading lady, of being able to carry a film, and of being willing to transform herself and to not be so pretty. And so it really, for a director to be able to have that kind of influence on a performer. And also, Monster was a really great story. She has the ability to tell a story. So she should have been thrown every movie that there was to offer.
I was in something of a very lightly similar situation. I had just done the anniversary.
Which I was in.
Which you were in.
And I loved working with you.
And well, we're still friends today, so that says a lot.
True.
So I was offered to direct another movie after that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
By a Hollywood personality that if I brought them up, you would recognize them.
Okay.
You would recognize them. And I was stoked. Now, after doing the anniversary, I decided, I don't think I really want to direct anymore. I think what I really want to do is produce. I think what I want to do is produce, which is why I'm directing a documentary right now. But anyway, what I really want to do is produce. But then this Hollywood person who had saw the anniversary, they, for whatever reason, thought it was pretty good for such a no-budget movie. And they came to me and offered me the script and said, I've been looking for somebody to direct this. I think you should direct this.
Great.
And they showed me the script, and it was awful.
Yeah.
Like, that's coming from me. I'm saying it was awful. But still at the same time, I thought, well, but it is like this recognizable person in Hollywood and offering me this thing. So I went to Mark Neveldine. Who,
I don't know.
Mark is one of the writers and directors of the Jason Statham Crank movies.
Okay.
And he also him and Brian Taylor have done a number of other things. Mark's still very active as a producer and things like that.
Was he one of the hosts of the Masters of the Web panel that we went to at Comic-Con that year?
I can't remember. I know I had Mark and Brian on once. I don't know if it was the same year. It might have been, though. Because they
directed a movie that had women hanging up on fish hooks.
The party afterwards, for that Masters of the Web thing, the party afterwards was for Crank 2.
Okay.
It was for Crank 2, because we had the waitresses with the X
tape
over the nipples and all that kind of stuff. And
I remember that.
It was a party, guys. It was a party.
Yeah.
But anyway, I talked to Mark Neveldine about it.
Okay.
And I just said, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, listen, Campea, he goes, first of all, if you're not even really sure you want to direct anyway, why do it? But he goes, just in case you ever do want to direct later in the future, if you do something like this right now, it'll kill any chance you ever have of doing something. And I never did end up doing anything else again that way, because I never did want to pursue directing, but it was the same advice he gave me. He goes, just pass on it. But for Patty Jenkins, a Thor movie, that must have been huge. Guys, the question for you is, what do you think about that whole thing with Patty Jenkins passing on it? And obviously, hindsight is 20/20, but it obviously worked out very well for her and very well for us, because we got her directing Wonder Woman, and I cannot wait to see what she does with Wonder Woman 84. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all of that down and out of the way, we're going to move on to live questions. But before we get to the live questions, I'm going to take a short 4-minute break here, give myself a chance to rest the vocal cords, stretch our legs, refill the drinks, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys will just hang tight with us, don't go anywhere, we will be right back. Let me try that again. I didn't turn the microphone on. Hey, John, I want to talk about this great time of amazing TV shows. Since so many shows have halted production, I'm very worried about the future. Everything I watch, like Stranger Things, The Witcher, Walking Dead, are all on hiatus. Even season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, which is in the editing room, is delayed. I'm even worried about season 2 of The Mandalorian, plus Superman and Lois, which I'm looking forward to pretty soon. There's nothing for us to watch. Well, but you have to understand, keep this in mind, that on top of all, yes, things are in hiatus, but remember, they're going to be delayed by 2 or 3 months. I mean, that's what it is. It's not like, oh, now The Witcher isn't going to get a season 2. Oh, now Netflix season 4 isn't ever going to come out. They're going to come out. Yeah, they might be a little bit delayed. I mean, and maybe they won't be delayed. I mean, if they weren't planning on putting out Netflix or Stranger Things season 4 till 2021 anyway, hey, listen, if they can get back to work in the next 6 weeks, they very well could. I mean, this is all theoretical, but they very well could still meet their original release date, right? So I wouldn't be too worried about it at this point on DeadSec. I think we've got a lot of reason to be optimistic on that. All right. I'm Short24 writes, hi, John. When do you think would be a good time for Sony to release Venom 2 trailer? Its release date is October 2nd. Are you interested in seeing a live-action adaptation of Carnage? Very much. Very much. And I love the first Venom movie. I think a good time to release a Venom 2 trailer would probably be late June. I think July, August, September, October. Yeah, late June. I would say late June is a good time to release a first Venom 2 trailer. And hopefully it's going to be able to maintain its release date. I think they will be. And then hopefully come June, we're going to start to see that stuff. 5 Symbiote, 5 Society writes, what are your thoughts on Venom versus Carnage? When would we expect to see footage of some sort or of teaser? Did you enjoy the first Venom? I really enjoyed the first Venom far more than I expected that I would. I had a very, very good... Did you see Venom?
Mm-mm.
You didn't saw... Yeah, a lot of people... There's still a lot of people, even though it made over $800 million at the box office, I had a very, very good time with it. And
Tom loved it.
Tom, yeah, I knew it's a type of movie Tom would like. I knew Tom would like that movie. You guys should come over some night, when we can, right. And we should just get you to watch Venom, because Ann and I actually really like Venom.
Let's do it.
I have a good time with that movie, and I think a lot of you guys are like me, and I'm very much looking forward to Venom fighting Carnage in the screen. Triple J's Thoughts writes, hey, John and all, thank you for your entire team and all your hard work and dedication. You are all so wonderfully entertaining. You helped me pass the time while doing my postal route. My quarantine watching is re-binging Lucifer in prep for season 5.
Do it.
So obviously a little bit of a bias in here because we have Aaron who's going to be in season 5. He's going to make an appearance in season 5 Lucifer. By the way, I'm not asking for insider information. Have they said when season 5 is going to air yet? The first half?
I believe it's May.
May is when they're aiming for?
That's what I believe, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, we'll not quote you on
Hollywood Reporter will know better than I will.
But I'm very, very excited for Lucifer, because everybody knows what a Lucifer head I am, so I'm very excited about that. All right, thank you for that, Triple J. Appreciate that. Triple J also writes in, another random thought, was rewatching Jojo Rabbit the other day, and I could be wrong, but I think Jojo and Elsa practiced some awesome social distancing at the end of the movie. Well, there's a lot of, they stay separate, through most of the movie, they stay separated by a wall in a lot of the movie, so you're right. A lot of they were thinking ahead. They were thinking ahead with the social distancing. Murray Reich writes, watched Red Sun. I want to see this. And it was very good. Love these types of Elseworld movies. Do you think it would work on the big screen? Again, I have not watched it. So, Aaron, I don't know. I'm going to go on a limb and guess you have not watched Red Sun yet.
I have not.
Okay,
no.
So, but here's what's interesting about it. This is what Red Sun is. Red Sun, it's based on an older, kind of an Elseworld, a what-if sort of comic book story. And it imagines, what if, when Kal-El, a.k.a. Superman, was shot to Earth as a little baby in his little pod, what happens if instead of landing in Kansas, he landed in the Soviet Union?
Oh.
And was raised in the Soviet Union.
Wow.
And I have always been fascinated by that notion. And listen, I generally don't like the DC or Marvel animated stuff. There are exceptions. There are some very big exceptions. But generally speaking, I don't. But this is one I've been wanting to see.
Oh, for sure.
I'm totally down for this. Whether or not, Murray, though, I think it would work as a live action thing.
I think it would be great as live action.
I mean, it's hard to say because I haven't seen the animated one yet, but
the story, the concept is brilliant. Oh, and by the way, on your recommendation, I did listen to the Kevin Smith
Superman story. How good was that?
It did not disappoint.
With the John Peters and everything?
It was brilliant. Yes.
You know what's funny? My friend John Schnepp, who passed away, he actually was able. John Schnepp's documentary, "The Death of Superman Lives: What Happened," the movie Nicolas Cage was going to star Superman in, that when Tim Burton was going to direct, and which is the basis of that story. So John Schnepp did this documentary on what happened to that movie, how did it all go down, and he was actually able to get John Peters in his documentary. He went to John Peters' house.
Wow.
And got to actually sit down and chat with. It's one of the best things in the documentary. So for those of you who have not checked out The Death of Superman Lives: What Happened, go check it out. And Tim Burton's in it too, and it's really great. But Murray, I'm going to want to wait to see the animated thing to decide whether or not. But hey, if Joker can work as an Elseworld kind of movie, I think Red Sun, you know what? I don't think it would confuse anybody either because it's so radically different. So we'll have to see. Ryan Lohner writes, well, it finally happened. I watched Cats and part of me is gone forever. About 20 minutes in, you start thinking, is it me? Have I somehow forgotten how to watch a movie? I have still not brought myself to watching Cats.
I haven't either. And I said that I was going to in the theater on mushrooms.
Too. On shrooms.
If you, so if you want to have a double date of
double date night. Just sit down and watch Cats.
Yes, you and Anne don't have to do mushrooms, but I will absolutely. I can't imagine watching Cats without being on mushrooms.
You know, we'll make it a double feature. We'll watch a good one. We'll watch Venom, have some fun, and then we'll buckle in and we'll watch Cats.
That's a good night. I'm into that.
I think that's a good night right there. Okay, next up here, that was Ryan. We're now on to KC Hunter, who writes, if 90% of moviegoers are casuals, how much effect do repeat viewings of geek culture have on film percentage-wise at the box office? Well, actually, I answered this yesterday for Kesey. I actually think even though we hardcore fans represent a small percentage of the overall movie-going audience, I think repeat viewings of our small percentage are incredibly important. Not only because idiots like me go to the theater like 6 or 7 times to go see Endgame, but almost every time that I went, here's the key. Almost every time that I went, I brought a different person or a different group of people with me. So I am dragging other people to the movies with me every time I go back to see it umpteen times, right? So on that level, in one sense, you know, the casual movie-going audience is vastly bigger than the hardcore fan group. But for these rare films like an Endgame or something like that, where we're going to go back 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, and we're bringing different groups of people with us every time, it can become significant, Casey. Like, I know, actually, you're a good example of this, Aaron, because I have dragged you to movies that I've gone to see on my second or third viewing, right? So you're a living example of that. Have you ever seen a movie you loved and then got somebody else to come with you to go see it again for another time that wasn't Tom?
What's actually coming to mind is I did a play years ago with Paul Ben-Victor, who's a brilliant character actor. He was in True Romance. He's a good friend of mine, and we did a play together. And who's the guy in Scarface, the brother who gets shot? I forget the name of the actor, but he's a good friend of Paul's, and he came to see our play, and he loved it so much that every single weekend he came back and would bring like 5 people the next weekend, and then he'd bring 10 people the next weekend, and then 20, and essentially like this guy whose name escapes me, the guy from Scarface, was one of the reasons why our show was able to go on as long as it was. And we were like, thank God this guy does it. So I've seen it firsthand as a performer, how that can work in the theater space, which depends on people really, you know, being there not just for the money, but also for the, you know, the having a full audience. So absolutely it translates to the film world as well.
All right, next up here we got Not Kevin Feige writes, Joker and Pennywise in Space Jam 2, your thoughts? Inconsequential, I really don't care. So basically there's this piece of footage that got leaked that was of like a sizzle reel for Space Jam 2, and its authenticity is not 100%, but a lot of people, there's a good reason to believe it's authentic. Some people don't believe it, whatever. And you see quick glimpses of like Pennywise and Joker in it. Honestly, it's completely inconsequential. It's like saying in Ready Player One, what do you think about Chucky being in Ready Player One? Well, Chucky was in it for literally 3 seconds. And I think, I don't know what to base it on, but I think it's probably going to be something along the same lines. But then again, I mean, I don't know. Let's wait to see some actual official stuff. All right, Darklock63 writes, movie recommendation Shattered from 1991 starring Tom Berenger, Greta Sashi, and Bob Hoskins. I am not familiar with that one. Hold on, let me look this up. Are you familiar with this one?
No, I've
Aaron?
never heard of it.
What's it called? Let's say Shattered.
But I do love
Not
Tom
Shattered
Berenger.
Glass. Oh, I love Tom Berenger. And I loved Bob Hoskins, too. You know what? I was thinking, as soon as I see the poster, I'm going to know. Like, okay, it was directed by Wolfgang Peterson. I thought, as soon as I see the poster, I'm going to know the movie. But no, I don't, actually.
I know Bob Hoskins best from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
I know Bob Hoskins best from Hook.
Oh.
As Mr. Smee in Hook.
Which, speaking of Hook, I didn't realize when I left the house today that I'm dressed like a fucking pirate. But I literally looked on as soon as we were doing the camera test at the beginning, and I was like, why am I dressed like a pirate? So
all you're missing is the eye patch.
With my my little COVID-19 gloves on. I look like a cafeteria worker.
A cafeteria worker. All right. That's a good one, Darklight. I have not seen that one. Okay. Mr. TJ Lynn writes, Aaron, if you are offered a job, but you know or feel that the script is bad, will you still consider doing it for the sake of being professional? Thanks, and cuddle Joey Bishop for me. Well, there you go. So, I mean, we're kind of talking about that, but let's fast forward to today. Instead of looking at what we have done in the past, let's forward to today. Let's say, I don't know, what's something really big and popular on TV? Let's say Westworld. Let's say you got offered a guest spot on Westworld, but it's terrible. Do you take it?
100%.
Yeah?
Because it's Westworld, because it's already a proven entity. You know, like my agent called me one time and said, hey, Aisha Coley, who's a casting director in town, Aisha Coley just called. She thought of you for this thing with Ava DuVernay. And I said, yes, I'm in. I'll do it. And he said, well, you don't even know what it is yet. And I said, I don't care. It's Ava DuVernay. So that, like, just working with her by itself, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I want to do that. And so certain entities you say yes to. There was actually a situation where I was offered a film. It was an independent film, and they were offering me the lead, and they were also offering me producer credit on it. And so they would pay me as an actor, and they'd also pay me as a producer. And I read the script, and it was just, I couldn't even, it just didn't even make any sense. It was so terrible. Like, nothing tracked. It was awful. And my agent said, yeah, but just do it. You'll make the money, you know, and whatever. Nobody will ever see it. It won't really matter. And I said to the writer, I said, listen, if you can implement these changes to the script, I'm willing to do it. And he was like, wow, these are all really good notes. But ultimately they weren't going to change the script at all. And so I just said, you know what, then I have to walk away. And could I have used the money? Absolutely. You know, I mean, actors, we go from job to job, and when we're not working, unless we're doing what I'm doing and driving for Postmates on the side, you know, you're not making any money at all. So it was a hard thing to walk away from. But I don't look at that as being unprofessional. Being professional doesn't mean saying yes to every job. Being professional means that if you're going to say no, you have a reason to say no, and you stand by that. And because the other alternative is to say yes and then to go to set and be miserable and make everyone around you miserable. I don't want to work on a project that I'm not excited about working on because there's somebody else who will take that project and they'll do a much better job than me. And I actually know the person who ended up doing that movie, and it was just as bad as I thought it was going to be.
But also, it's also a thing like Westworld, like the difference between that situation and say a Patty Jenkins or you on Westworld was that, or doing a guest spot on Westworld is like doing a guest spot on an existing show. If it was a terrible spot or it's a terrible episode, the audience isn't going to hold you responsible for
Right,
that.
exactly.
Whereas if you're the director or it's like you're the lead in it, if it fails, it's a little bit more
If it's an
associated
Aaron
with you.
Cummings project and it fails, then then I'm part of that.
Then
But if
you
I'm
get
just a
held to
part
that.
I'm not the reason why the shows that I've been on have been canceled. They weren't my shows.
Right.
I was just a part of it.
All right, Crone Dog writes, on your recommendation, I tried a good old-fashioned orgy. I love that film. I quite liked it. In fact, I'll never have sex with just one person again. Also,
Why
not
would
a bad
you?
idea. Why would you? Have you ever seen a good old-fashioned orgy?
I have not even ever heard of it.
Jason
so
Sudeikis, Lake Bell.
I love Jason
A couple of the
Sudeikis.
people from The League.
The
It
League.
is I was at AMC Theaters when that movie came out.
I've never even heard of it, but I've seen every episode of The League, so I know I'll love
Oh, so you're
love
going
it.
to know a lot of the people in this movie. AMC, like I went and did the interviews for it. I ended up loving this movie, and it was my movie recommendation the other day. And I love this movie. And I went and interviewed the cast. And I fell in love with Lake Bell. But AMC at the time just didn't know what to do with it. Like they didn't know what to do with that movie if they could even write, because it's called A Good Old Fashioned Orgy. And they just didn't know what to do with it. And they ultimately, I had some drag out fights with AMC when I was there. And 8 times out of 10, I dug my heels in and AMC. But one of the times that I lost was they didn't want me to post my interviews for A Good Old Fashioned Orgy.
Why?
Because they had made the decision, I believe, not to run it wide. And they didn't want, and I understood where they were coming from, because they said, what we don't want to do, I didn't understand the decision not to run it wide. But if they're not going to run it, then they're like, we don't want to create confusion with our patrons that, well, why are we putting up our interviews with this movie if we're not even putting it in our theaters? And we fought about it. But like at the end of the day, I'm like, that's actually not bad reasoning. I mean, if it's not going to be playing in a theater here,
Right.
are we creating confusion with me promoting it and doing an AMC interview with it? So they never even posted it, but that's a great movie.
Did they not want to put it in their theaters because of the title?
I think so.
But what about movies like Zack and Miri Make a Porno?
I know.
That is absolutely on par with the with the orgy movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the movies, they're a little bit different. But I mean, listen. These are all things I've argued. These are all things I argued anyway.
I'll check it out.
All right. I think it's a delightful film. I think it's really fun. And, it's a little filthy too, but that's okay. Crone Dog also writes, John, you are an anti-pet peeve. In a world where people hate different opinions, run news for clicks, and try to feel superior to all, you buck those trends. You're such an outstanding... Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for all you do. I appreciate that, Crone Dog. It's always kind of neat when somebody wants to write in something just to be nice. So
Yeah.
Thanks, man. You put a smile on my face,
to
dude.
be nice.
All right, Crone Dog also writes, maybe with the paucity of news stories, this would be a good time for a movie tournament. Just use Twitter polls like your question of the day, and if you don't want to do a full production about it. So every year for a number of years, I've done the March Movie Madness tournament. But there's a lot of production and a lot of behind the scenes work that goes into those. And I simply don't have the bandwidth to do it right now. I could do it very much like on the cheap and do it really cheap, but then it just wouldn't feel special. I feel like it just wouldn't feel special. I'll tell you what though, me and Ray and I will talk about it because we both really like doing the movie tournaments and doing the brackets and all that kind of stuff. So me and Ray will talk about it more, and we'll see if we can come up with a way to do it that won't be super labor intensive, but at the same time won't be cheap. You know what I mean? I mean, everything I do is cheap compared to real productions, but I mean, I won't be cheap by our standards. So we'll see if we can come up with something like that. All right, Crone Dog also writes, I was in the ER last night for COVID-related breathing issues. That sucks. I shouldn't die, but wanted to say how great your show is just in case.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, first of all, thank you for writing in at all, and do take care of yourself. I mean, remember, the most important thing, the statistics say you'll be fine if you get it. The main thing that should be on our minds is not how am I going to do? The question is, how am I going to affect the people around me? And my whole thing has always been this. If you want to know how to conduct yourself as somebody in this lockdown, pretend like you've already got it. If everybody pretended like they already had it, then you're going to do the right things to isolate yourself. Because I find we as people may not care much about ourselves, but we're generally not giant dicks when it comes to how we might affect people around us. So just have the mindset that you're somebody who already has it. So anyway, hey, quarantine yourself, hunker down, be good, get through this to the other side. And thanks again for watching while we're doing it. I'm glad we can be here to help you get through this as you're doing that, Crone Dog. Thanks a lot, man. Take care of yourself. All right, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John and Aaron, if you're still there. With the talk of sitcoms, I have an interesting question. The Office and Seinfeld, out of those two, which group would you want to hang out with more? And which group would accept you as a member, do you think? Because we were talking about this. The Office, I believe it was yesterday, had its 15th anniversary.
Oh my gosh.
It was either yesterday or 2 days ago.
From its first episode airing?
Yeah, from the first episode airing. I believe, it was 15 years. Which group would I more want to hang out with? I know which individual I'd want to hang out with. Okay. Jim. I'd want to hang out with Jim. Oh,
obviously.
Jim's the guy I would want to hang out with.
Everybody wants to hang out with Jim.
I think the group I would want to hang out with is probably the Seinfeld group, just to sit in Jerry's apartment with Elaine and Kramer and George and Jerry all in there. But they would never accept me. They would never accept anybody. That's too closed of a group, so they would never accept me. I feel I have a better chance of walking in as a temp into that office in... what is the name of the town in Pennsylvania that the Office takes place in? Scranton.
Scranton. Mm-hmm.
I feel like I would have a better chance walking as a temp in Scranton and being kind of accepted there. Never into that Jerry clique, though. But I don't know. If you had to pick one person to hang out with, who would it be?
Obviously, I would want to be Jim's girlfriend, because who doesn't want to be Jim's girlfriend? But ultimately, and I would want to hang out with Pam. I think she and I would be friends. But ultimately, it would be me and Angela in the corner sharing cat pictures. We would literally be the two crazy cat ladies, and Angela is also the same person who, like me, would walk around looking like the lunch lady wearing plastic gloves everywhere.
But Angela would not have recommended Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
She would definitely she would never even watch Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
By the way, have you, I still haven't, and I desperately want to, have you listened to the new podcast, well, relatively new now, that Jenna Fisher and
Angela Kinsey have done?
Office Girls or Office Ladies?
I haven't, but I follow them both on Instagram, and I love that they're best friends.
And those two are doing a podcast right now about their experiences doing The Office and talking about different episodes of The Office.
I love that.
I'm glad I just remembered that, because I want to go back and start listening to that. Okay.
Oh, and by the way, Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, directed by the same person who directed and wrote 9 to 5. So for all of the Dolly Parton fans that love connection. 9 to 5, if you like 9 to 5, then you'll also like Best Little Whorehouse.
You know who I when I think of 9 to 5, the first name to my mind isn't Dolly Parton.
Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin.
Dabney Coleman.
Oh, Dabney Coleman's brilliant.
I love Dabney Coleman.
He's so good.
Did you ever see, I was a little kid and I had no business
Carol Burnett
seeing
show?
this.
Oh.
No, but another thing with Dabney Coleman, it was called Young Doctors in Love. I don't know if you remember it. It was a spoof comedy,
of course
but it had boobies. It's one of the first movies I ever saw that had boobies. And so that sort of thing makes an impression on you as a youngster, and it stays with you. But I love Dabney Coleman. Coleman.
Yeah, he's great.
Okay, anyway. He was also he was in Boardwalk too. That HBO show, Boardwalk
Empire?
Yeah, he was like, what do they call him? The colonel or the general?
Really?
Yeah. He was like the older guy that like ruled the mansion and everything.
I need to go back and watch that. I loved him from the Carol Burnett show.
Dabney Coleman.
And wasn't he also in Mama's Family? I think he came in as a recurring guest star on Mama's Family.
I don't think that was Dabney Coleman. But he was also in that Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movie, You've Got Mail.
Oh.
Because he was Tom Hanks' dad in You Got Mail in the bookstore empire and stuff like that.
Let's face it, Dabney Coleman's just great.
Dabney Coleman's the boss.
He's great.
Okay, anyway. Next up, Morse Codes writes, John, I'm with you when it comes to binge or have to wait a week when it comes to new shows, but I'm not sure it's fair to compare Mandalorian when Disney Plus released to people just now getting Disney Plus when the discussion has already happened. But here's the problem with that. So what Morse Codes is talking about is this discussion about Disney Plus has just launched in a number of other countries, including the UK. And they are doing what they did in North America. They're releasing Mandalorian week to week. And some people are complaining about that, just like they complained about it in North America when they did it that way. And I said, no, the week to week is just the best way to do it. Now, Morse Codes brings up a legitimate point when saying, yeah, but is that fair when everybody else has already talked about it? But there are two things to keep in mind. Number one, if the issue is everybody's already talked about it, then that doesn't change if they just dropped it all at once or if they release it week to week. But the second important thing to remember is this, is you and I belong to a cell where in this cellular organism, a bunch of us watched Mandalorian and talked about it online week to week and followed everything, blah, 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 blah. The vast majority of the audience who's going to be sitting down at home and popping this on didn't do that and didn't follow along. Everybody already knows Baby Yoda's there. That's there whether you binge it all at once or go week to week on the episodes. So I don't really think it makes much of a difference. So yeah, I think they're doing the right thing by going week to week. I really do. Now, again, I'm a binger. I love sitting down and being able to plow through an entire series or season of something like that in 2 or 3 days. I do, but even though I prefer that, the week-to-week thing has just proven to be the wiser choice. And you're going to see Netflix experimenting with that too. Netflix is going to be experimenting. Actually, they're already doing a light experiment with it with Lucifer. It's a light experiment that they're not going to drop the whole season at once. They're going to drop like one half of the season and then wait a few months and then drop the other half of the season, build up some word of mouth. I'm telling you, within 3 years, I think half of the shows on half of the original series on Netflix are going to be week-to-week releases.
Really?
I think within 3 years. And I think we're going to see the first one do it fairly. Actually, I think there already is a show or two on Netflix doing it that way. I think there is. At any rate, I think I remember some people saying that to me. Anyway, okay, so that was Morse code. Thanks for sending that in, man. Next one. Edgar Navarro writes, "Hey, John, hope all is going well." It is, Edgar, thank you. I, like many, would like to recommend a couple of films that I feel most people haven't seen but should. Tragedy Girls on Hulu. I have not seen that. Ingrid Goes West, which I'm very familiar with, but I have not seen
Correct.
it. And The Package. The Package. Oh, that's the zombie one. That I think that's the okay. So it's the dude who plays Bilbo in the Hobbit movies,
Okay.
and I believe I believe that's the zombie apocalypse movie where he gets into a car wreck of some sort. During the zombie apocalypse, him, his wife, and his baby are trying to get away. His wife dies as a result of the thing, and he realizes he's been bit by a zombie, and he's got like 24 or 48 hours to get his baby somewhere safe before he turns into a zombie. So he's like, so it's a race against time to get his baby somewhere safe because he's got to get his baby away from him and get his baby safe.
Right.
I haven't seen it yet though. I mean, it sounds amazing to me, but that's a really good recommendation, Edgar.
Yeah.
The concept of that is awesome. Like I love movies or TV shows where it's like a, what the hell do you do concept.
I know. I
Like,
just
what do you
don't
do?
know if my anxiety can handle that right now.
It would,
I'm kind of, my adrenal glands are kind of shot at this point. I think I might wait until after all of this.
All this behind us to watch something like
behind
that?
us. Right now, I just want to watch some lighthearted comedies. Which is why
the
I'm
same.
watching Deadwood.
Right.
The classic lighthearted comedy.
So you're not watching Outbreak or
I actually did watch Outbreak.
Oh, isn't it good?
I watched Outbreak. Tom and I watched Outbreak on like the first day of the lockdown, and it's fantastic. I remember watching it before, but it had just extra. That moment when the person coughs and the entire theater is filled. I wish I had seen that in a movie theater because I could only imagine the first time audience in the movie theater seeing that moment and the horror that they must have felt just sitting in there, like just crawling in their own skin.
All right. Next up here, Hayden Lee, because we only got about 10 minutes left here, guys. Hayden Lee writes, 1 of 3. Hey, John and crew. I'm writing this with no pants on, because No Pants Thursday in the honor of the tradition. Since I am a Regal Unlimited member, there is a theater I've been going to called the Cinnabar Arboretum. Arboretum? I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that badly. In Charlotte, North Carolina. It is by far the best theater I've been to.
Arboretum?
They have a full-size bar as you walk in. When you go to take your seat in the theater, they will come and take your order like a restaurant would. If you want refills or anything, you call your waiter with the press of a button. They have a full menu of food items to choose from. Examples, hamburgers, pizza. I would like to know you and your crew's opinions about theaters providing great full service to the customer, and if you have heard of something like this before, thanks. And HNPT.
Happy No Pants Thursday.
Happy No Pants. Oh, well done. I never would have got that. Well done. Well, actually, in Los Angeles, We do have a number of theaters that are like that, which are great. So you got things like AMC dine-in theaters, which have full bars and then a full menu at your seat. Actually, they held the awards ceremony at the Glendale Studio Bar and Grill that just opened up.
Arboretum,
thanks. Arboretum. Arboretum. Anyway.
It's not a very common word.
Where you literally can go. This theater I was just in, it's in Glendale, which is like a 10-minute drive from here. It's all black leather recliner chairs, right? Same thing, push of a button, a waiter will come to you, take your order, bring you a blanket if you want one, or a little pillow.
Nice.
The cup holder in the chair, it took me a second to realize this. The cup holder in the chair is all metal. It's like, okay, it's metal instead of plastic. But with the push of another button, the metal chills and it keeps your drink cold.
That's brilliant.
You put it in there. And if some people find it cold, I like that they keep movie theaters cool. I like nice cool air in the movie theater. Because, hey, if you're cold, you can put on a jacket. You're fine. But for those people like my wife who get a little chilly in the theater, press of another button, the seats heat.
You're kidding.
Oh, no. It is magnificent.
There is nothing better than a seat heater.
Because you know what it is? It combines the best of all worlds. Look, I know there's some people who like watching movies at home. Watching movies at home sucks compared to a movie theater.
Totally.
But there are advantages to watching at home. Comfort, food, whatever. Those types of movie theaters give you the best kind of watching at home while giving you the best of actually going out and going to a movie theater, being with 500 other people, laughing together, jumping out of your seats together. It's the best of both worlds.
Right.
And I hope all movie theaters are like that sometime soon. And you know what? You would think that having having a waiter coming in and out of the theaters to people, you would think that would be distracting. That was my big concern going to an AMC dine-in for the first time. It really wasn't.
Because they crouch.
Yeah.
They kind of sneak in there and they sneak out.
I honestly, I can't explain why it doesn't distract you. Because in theory, it totally should, but I just know I've gone to these theaters a number of times, and every time it's never been a problem. The iPic Theater in Pasadena also does this, and it's wonderful too.
Have you been to Alamo Drafthouse?
I have been to Animal Drafthouse. I have been to Animal.
It's the only theater that Tom and I go to now.
It's also
but we'll
very
have
good.
to check out the other ones that do the same thing. We're just now completely spoiled, and I know that there's multiple Alamo Drafthouse locations around
across
the country.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that it started in Texas since
It
it's
did.
called Alamo Drafthouse.
I believe
it started out in Austin.
Austin, Texas. Yes,
that would make sense.
Is where they started. But I'm telling you, this Studio Bar and Grill in Glendale.
We'll have to check it out.
And the iPic, like the iPic is a little different because you go into the theater in the iPic in Pasadena, and the first thing you have to go is it's all underground. So you go down these escalators, and you end up in this huge, what's the best word? A foyer, I guess you could say, of an area that's all brown leather furniture and bookshelves on the walls and pool tables and cocktail waitresses.
It's very adult.
You feel like you just stepped into like a speakeasy in kind of way. Like it's gorgeous. And then when there's certain doors along the wall, and each door is a different theater, and you go into the theater. And
so it sort of sets a mood first.
Sets a total mood. They got the full bar there, whatever. Then you go into the theater, and seats are in pods. So like these two seats together, surrounded by these wood walls around your seat like this, that have
like the fancy seats in the first class of airplanes.
Yes. So
like
they've got little
1.
shelves and a little place for you to plug in your phone if you want. Just not to use, but to keep it charged.
Sure, that's great.
You got little pockets you can put things from your pockets in. The beds, I call it the beds because the seats go full recline. They go full recline. They've got a pillow in there and a little folded up blanket in there too with the menu. And you just, again, hit the button, the menu. I mean, these types of theaters.
That's an iPic?
That's an iPic in Pasadena.
Wow.
Ann and I
that might have just usurped my Alamo Drafthouse.
That and the Glendale Studio Bar and Grill you should check out. Alamo Drafthouse is awesome too. But Ann and I went to go see the horrible remake of Pet Sematary at the iPic, and yet we still had a great time because the theater was great.
Yeah.
And then the first movie we saw at the Alamo Drafthouse was the brilliant The Farewell. That was
we
the
saw
first.
Knives Out there. That was, I think, the first time that
what a
we
great
went there.
experience.
And I think, one of the things that I also love about it, speaking of an adult experience, is the fact that they make it explicitly clear if you are texting, if you are talking, if you are creating any sort of ruckus,
go fuck yourself.
You will be kicked out.
Yep.
And other people, like if someone is bothering you, you just let the waiter know.
When
and
I
they
was
will,
there, the Before Sunset. It's Ethan Hawke and Julie. What's her name?
not Julie Taymor. Julie. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. So so when I went to go see the Pharrell at Alamo Drafthouse, they did this great public service announcement before the movie start, and it looks like a trailer for a new Before Sunset movie, right?
Yeah.
It's Ethan Hawke and her doing the scene on a balcony, and they're looking out on the scene, and then all of a sudden they get about 10 seconds into it, and Julie stops, or Julie, I can't remember her name. She stops and goes, oh, hold on a second. And she turns to the screen. She turns to the camera and goes, did you really just fucking pull out a fucking phone? And like, I'm like,
that's great.
This is awesome. This is how you start a movie to tell people to keep their phones put away.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. We spent way too much time on that. We've only got like 3 minutes left. Let's see. Anyway, Hayden, yes, love those types of theaters. I hope they all become like that soon. Okay, Murray Reich writes, just watch The Banker. Ooh, the one with Anthony Mackie and Nicholas Hoult and Sam Jackson. Just watch The Banker, and it's pretty solid film. Not great, but great performances by Sam Jackson, Anthony Mackie, and Nicholas Hoult. I know that was delayed for a while. Both Robert and I were really excited by the trailer. So, and I can't remember which service it's on. Is it Amazon that it's on? It's on one of the services. It went right to streaming. So I got to check that one out. Thanks for the input on that, because I forgot about that. I need to get caught up on that and go see that. Thank you, Murray. All right. Draco Eris writes, happy 10th anniversary to How to Train Your Dragon. Best animated trilogy, in my opinion. The franchise consists of 3 theatrical films, 5 short films, a TV show with 8 seasons. The last film had positive / profound impact on me. And yeah, we talked about that earlier this week. We did the 2 wide release films. There were 2 films this week that turned 10 wide release films. One was How to Train Your Dragon, which I adore. How to Train Your Dragon. It's wonderful. I still think Toy Story 1 through 3 is the best animated trilogy of all time, but How to Train Your Dragon 1 through 3 are all excellent films. Couldn't believe that it was turning 10 years old. Could not believe. You know what the other film was that was turning 10 this week? Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh my gosh.
10 years ago.
Really?
10 years. I would have said...
I would have said maybe 5.
Yeah. If you would come in and say, hey, John, how old do you think Hot Tub Time Machine? I'd probably it's 5, maybe 6. 10 years ago that thing came out.
Wow.
But yes, How to Train Your Dragon is definitely a great one. All right, guys, listen. For everybody else, from Nigel, Double Crit, Krypton Caged, Carmen, and everybody else all the way up, do not worry. You know what I'm going to do a little bit later today? I'm not only going to do a companion video a little bit later this afternoon, getting to all of these questions that got sent in. I'm going to do it live streamed. I'm just going to live stream answering your questions because you sent them in. I'm going to answer them properly in a video. I'm even going to live stream it a little bit later this afternoon. So keep your eyes open for that. In the meantime, Aaron, thank you and Joey Bishop so much for being here. Where can people find you online in the meantime?
You can find me at Aaron L. Cummings. You can find Joey at Rat Pack Cats. Those are on Instagram and for me on Twitter. And also, yeah, I guess that's the only place you can find me because we're unless I deliver your Postmates order.
So there you go on that. And also, guys, listen, you can just follow me on all my social media simply at John Campea. You know, I thought this conversation was about to go in a very different direction when you said, you know, speaking of adult experiences. I'm like, oh my God, where's Aaron going with this? Okay, but anyway, and guys, thank you for being here so much, for being a part of this show. Thank you to everybody who just made this a part of your day. Thank you so much for doing that. And also to all of you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel while you were doing it. And all of us here associated with the John Campea YouTube channel, thank you guys very much for that. Again, I will do a live stream a little bit later today with getting through all the rest of the questions that got sent in. And then, of course, we will be back again tomorrow with the John Campea Show. Make sure you guys tune in. All right, guys, that will do it for me for now. Thank you so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, bye-bye.